Lewis Hamilton breaks his clause with Mercedes and will race for Ferrari in 2025. Here to help me break all this down from SDPN's Jesse Blake and Adam Wylde. Guys, how's it going? It looks like you've had just as busy a day as I have.
I mean, I was working this afternoon. All I wanted to do was watch the announcement. I wanted to kind of see it all happen. But man, the person I thought about first was Jesse, because I know how big of a Lewis fan he is, and I need to know, is Jesse now a Ferrari fan, or is he remaining a Mercedes fan? Like, are you abandoning George and Toto, Jesse?
When the news came out, the first thing I thought about was my bank account and how much Ferrari merch I now have to buy and how I have to burn all of my Mercedes gear, because I root for Lewis more than I root for what do they call them? The Silver Arrows. So I think come 2025, I'll be following him to Team Red.
Man, and you know, the great thing about Ferrari merch is it's so well priced.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well overpriced. But
yes, it's always the most expensive stuff you can buy.
Oh, 100%, man. They never skimp out. Yeah, guys, it's been a crazy day. It's been a crazy story. It was just before we hit record, I was just telling Jesse, like, I was getting texts at like 3:37 this morning to basically buckle up because it was going to be a day. It's interesting because once we kind of came into this week, I was expecting Ferrari news this week, but the news we were expecting was that Carlos Sainz was going to be back at Ferrari signing a long-term extension. But it looks like things have changed.
How did they get far down the road with that? Because I think that's what everybody wants to know. Like, I mean, we know that they were talking, but did they? Because we all know Formula One's cutthroat. It could come down to the last minute, and the signature's not to paper, they'll make a change. Like, it's one of those things. Do you know anything about the Carlos extension talks and where they were going and how far apart the two sides were?
Yeah, I found out a lot about that today. So, Ferrari didn't want to give him a longer term extension, and this is something that they've actually been working on with Lewis behind the scenes for a little while now. And for Carlos, I think he eventually found out a few weeks ago. So it wasn't until recently for him. And that's when I think talks between Hamilton and Ferrari really started to escalate. I feel bad for Carlos in a way, but at the same time, I mean, this is part of Formula One, and this is what it is. There is driver turnover, and I mean, he's going to have a really great season and catch on somewhere else, which we can talk about in a minute. But I mean, obviously focusing this on Lewis in particular, I don't think he believed that Mercedes was going to recover enough in time for him. Like, if we look at Lewis now and where he's going to be in a few years, into his 40s, at that moment, how much time does he really have left, right? Like, how much time does he really want to give to Formula One, traveling the world? If the calendar keeps expanding, that's more travel for him and more time away from home. And as you get older, that stuff gets harder. So I think for Hamilton, it's basically, he saw some stuff that the engineers were doing. There was one engineer that decided to pick up and leave. And I think for himself, that was sort of the writing on the wall that this team may not get back to its championship winning ways for a while.
And that engineer, Tim, was important because he was, from what I read today, was he not one of the people that 2 years ago said, we're going the wrong direction with the car, and nobody listened to him?
Yeah, essentially, Leclerc. So Leclerc. So this guy, I mean, he was working a lot with Mike Elliott, and he worked a lot with James Allison too. He was a big component to the championship winning cars, working alongside James Allison for a while. And I think one of the big thing is that, Lewis had told the team before 2023 that this is the direction we need to take with the race car, and we need to go in this direction. And they didn't listen to him. And then they showed up in Bahrain last year with a similar type concept. Didn't really change that much. and it was a disaster, absolute disaster. And then they had to go back to the drawing board and recreate a recovery plan. And then that got introduced in Monaco. And then they had to stick it out with a car that was inconsistent, didn't handle well, was unresponsive, and you had to battle like hell for him to try and get it into a window where Lewis could make it work. So all of these different things, I mean, compounded. And then I think for Ferrari, Frederick Vasseur and Lewis have a really close relationship. Like they're very close, those two. They've won championships together in junior formulas. And Frederick, obviously being the team principal at Ferrari now, was talking to Lewis pretty much every single race weekend. And I think for president of Ferrari, John Elkann, it was a goal of his to try and get Lewis Hamilton into a Ferrari.
Yeah, there's stories that have been coming out over the last 12 hours since this has been announced about the relationship between Lewis and Ferrari. And Elkann, they met at a Google conference, I think it was, is the story, and they've developed a relationship over the course of the last couple months and years. And with Vasseur, there was the comment during the summer where they're asking him hey, is Lewis going to sign with Ferrari? Because we saw you guys talking, and he said that if every time we talked, he signed a contract, that would cost us a lot of money, because they talk so often. So, and just with the name brand of Ferrari, there's a certain serendipity to Lewis finishing his career there. He's going to be 40 by the time he starts. And it's the dream of every F1 driver to be a Ferrari driver. And it's like the great baseball player going to play with the Yankees at the end of his career. It's the brand itself. And for him to wrap up his career there, it makes a lot of sense when you take a step back from the time he spent with Mercedes and you just look at the overall move. It makes a lot more sense when you think about it.
Yeah, you make a good point there, Jesse. Just real quick, Adam, when you guys think about it, what's the cross sport equivalent to this? I was actually asked it on Digital Sports Center earlier today, and the best thing I could come up with was Tom Brady going from the New England Patriots to the Tampa Bay Bucks, but I couldn't think of anything else.
It would be Brady if he went and played for the Cowboys, I would say.
Michael Jordan with the Lakers or something.
Yeah, Jordan to the Lakers. Even LeBron for going to the Lakers, which was supposed to be the end of his career, and you just extended it for how many years. But that kind of move is what I would look at it as.
LeBron and Lewis are kind of the same in that way that you just wow, they're still they're acting like they're 29 when they're close to 40. I think I think what's interesting here, and Jesse, you talk about serendipity and about a guy who wants to finish his career with Ferrari. And Tim, you talked about engineering issues at Mercedes. And I think, he wants to finish his career in red and black, and that's awesome. But name another team that's had more engineering issues outside of Mercedes than Ferrari. A top team anyway.
Yeah,
that's why people expect to win.
I mean, that's why Frederick Vasseur was brought in, right? And another reason for that, and we've talked about it on the show before, is just simply to keep Charles Leclerc at the team. But you're right. There has been a lot of turnover behind the scenes at Ferrari. I mean, Davis Sanchez leaving and heading down to McLaren. That was a huge loss for them. That was massive. That was done last season. And so they got to replace him. And so, I mean, Lauren Mekis as well, leaving and becoming the team principal over at, Visa Cash App.
V-Car,
Formula 1 team, V-Car.
Just call them Racing Bulls. Can we just call them Racing Bulls? Are we allowed to do that?
I wish we could. We'll find out more on February 8th. But essentially, Adam, though, you are right. I mean, there is so much going on behind the scenes at Ferrari, and that's what got me thinking that if any driver is going to be able to come in and really put his stamp down on the team and make sure his voice is heard, that's going to be Lewis Hamilton. I mean, he's going to go in there, and they're going to have a massive amount of respect for him. And they're going to listen to everything he has to say. And they're going to do everything he wants. And it reminds me a lot of Michael Schumacher. Mm-hmm. When Schumacher went to Ferrari and built that team around himself. Now, granted, Lewis doesn't have that runway. He doesn't have as long as Michael did at Ferrari. He's probably going to have 2 to 4 years, maybe one more after that. Maybe. But that being said, he's going to have to find a way of getting that team to revolve around him, which I think he can do. And at the end of the day, that's what you want to build your team around. Sorry, Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but when Lewis moved from McLaren to Mercedes. Mercedes had 0 championships and 1 race win ever when he joined the team. And then look at the run they had.
Yeah, well, when they were Brawn, so like before all of that, they were Brawn, and then into Mercedes, the bones of that team had a championship under its belt and race wins. But yes, when Schumacher kind of came over to Mercedes and partnered up with Nico Rosberg, he was a huge part of that team kind of getting onto the right track. And it was Niki Lauda who was the one who convinced Lewis to leave McLaren and come to their team. And that was another like shock announcement, right? Like he's had 2 of them. Yeah. And I would say 2 of the biggest, and those are the 2 biggest. Today, obviously being the biggest, in my opinion. But yeah, it was Niki Lauda who convinced him to come over, and I remember talking to him about all that too back in 2014. And so I think if it's not for Lauda, Hamilton doesn't end up in Mercedes. He probably doesn't win as many championships. Does he win another championship? I mean, hard to say.
If you look at how McLaren went in the middle of last decade, they're just like a non-player for a while.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So again, right, smart move by him. Like he really did his due diligence. He investigated. What is the team working on? What is this new hybrid power unit for 2014? How good is that going to be in our Mercedes? How much are we working on that? And so for Lewis, that was important. And I think he's done the same thing here, guys. I really do. I really think he's really dug in to see what everybody's up to. And he must really like what he sees at Ferrari.
What do you think? What do you think was the sell job? And I don't mean this I don't mean it in a cheap way. First off, I think the smartest thing that in retrospect Ferrari could have done was drop Mattia Binotto. And it's not because Mattia is not smart. It's because Fred Vasseur had great relationships with 2 incredible drivers, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. Today, what a genius move. Okay. What if they're, and obviously I don't think they toured Lewis through Maranello because I think that would have got out.
Oh, we would have heard about that.
Yeah. But okay, so you're Fred Vasseur and you're the executive board, whoever in the Ferrari brand is showing up to these meetings, being on these calls, whatever it was that they did on a Zoom call, kind of like what we are right now. How do you sell him on the next couple of years? Yes, the Ferrari car has been fast. There have been mistakes made by Leclerc and Sainz a little bit too. I mean, they were able to win a race last year. That was, they were able to do that.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think was the key here? It's got to be more than just it's Ferrari, it's the prancing horse, and you're Lewis Hamilton. You need to be here at some point.
It's the fact that you would mention that win by Carlos Sainz in Singapore in a season where it was impossible to steal a win away from Red Bull Racing. I think for Lewis, I think he understood that they have a really fast qualifying car. Their car was tremendous in qualifying shape once we got to midway into the season, and then to the back half of the season, their qualifying car was really strong. It was their race car that really let them down. And so, what are they doing to fix that? Those are things that a guy like Frederick Vasseur would have to jump on a Zoom call and explain to Lewis, like, these are the people we're bringing in. These are the steps we are taking. This is what our simulation is showing for our 2024 car. But here is where our trajectory is for 2025. And you got to sell him on that. You have to sell him on the fact that by 2025, hey, we could have a car here that can challenge against Red Bull Racing for wins, but we're also doing it in a way where into 2026, we're going to be prepared with our new power unit, because that is going to be what keeps Lewis Hamilton either in Formula One or out of Formula One, is what happens with that regulation change in 2026.
Oh. And Tim, can I ask you just a question, like a kind of a step back question about the way these contracts work with F1? Does nobody within the world find it so strange that a driver is signing on with a new team a year ahead of time and has to go through a whole season with their old team as it is right now and perform under those regulations with that team and try their best while everybody knows they're moving on?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jesse. I mean, you see a lot of it in American, media trying to understand Formula One and trying to understand like, well, this is really weird because why would you sign on or announce it or whatever? I mean, we'll announce it because it got leaked, but outside of that, I mean, why would you do that? Like, so for a driver, I'll put you in that perspective. You only have a finite amount of time in Formula One. And obviously, the main goal of any racing driver is to win, be competitive, and make your money. And where am I going to do all of those things? Like, which team is going to offer me that outcome? Obviously, for Ferrari, money is not so much an issue, right? It's the fact that trying to get their stuff together and be competitive is their main issue. But outside of all of that, I mean, it will be extremely contentious, I think, at Mercedes this year. I think you've now moved George Russell from that, number 2, 1B driver to now 1A. If I'm Toto Wolff, and I said this on SportsCenter, I'm shutting Lewis out. And from the standpoint, what I mean is no information. He gets no information. He gets no data. He doesn't get to see anything that we're working on at the factory. And that is it. Because
is he getting input?
He won't want Lewis to take information, that they are working on over to Ferrari, which any driver would do, right? Mm-hmm. Because wherever you're going to go, you want to be competitive. And so if that includes you spilling the beans on something, then you got to do what you got to do. So I think for when you take a look at why would they make this announcement? Well, one, like I said, it got leaked, but why would it be that this is a year away? Mm-hmm. It's because Sainz, his contract is up at the end of the year. You're seeing all of these drivers do long-term deals, right? We saw Lando Norris do a long-term extension at McLaren last week. We saw the same thing with Charles Leclerc. Max Verstappen's locked up till 2028. And so, there's not that many great talents like hanging around, right? And so for Ferrari, it's like, let's see if we can get this guy to trigger his brake clause, get him over here, and get him under contract for as long as we possibly can, throw as much money, whatever he wants at him, get him here. And that's, again, John Elkann, right? That's John Elkann just wanting Lewis Hamilton on his team, no matter what the cost. And this isn't the first time we've had a driver sign something early. I mean, Carlos Sainz did something similar in 2020. I think it was
with McLaren signed on to McLaren. Ferrari.
It was a year earlier. So this isn't the first time we've had this stuff come up.
Yeah, because the Car-Lando pairing was great. We love that. But I wanted to ask you this because you talk about the brake clause, and Lewis is one of the highest paid athletes on the planet already, and rightfully so. Mm-hmm. This is a guy that reportedly, when the extension was done in 2023 for the 23-24, or sorry, I guess it was 24-25 season, but they've triggered this clause.
Yes.
When they did that extension, he was already making something in the neighborhood of £50 million a year.
Probably.
Right? So what's he get paid now?
Yeah, I know, that's the thing, right? I mean, who knows? We will never know.
We'll never know? That
that will never come out? No, how we take a look and be like, oh, Max Verstappen's the highest paid racing driver in Formula One. He's making whatever the number is, 52, 58 million, whatever that number is. We don't really know. That's the thing. It's not that these things don't get released, right? Driver contracts are extremely sealed. Not a lot of people get to take a look at them. Not a lot of people get to see what's even in them. We did a podcast with Alessandro Luni-Bravi on this show. He is a team representative for, Alfa Romeo Sauber. And he walked us through a lot of the intricacies and difficulties with Formula One driver contracts and just how convoluted they can be, because that's what he used to do. He used to do a lot of driver contracts. And so, I encourage people to go back, listen to that episode. It was last December, I believe we released it, 2023. But that being said, I mean, we'll never really know, Adam, what Lewis is going to be made. We can assume, and I'm sure there's probably going to be some numbers thrown around, but I'd pay him whatever he wants. I would. If I had the money, I'd just back the Brinks truck up, open the door, and just start backing it up.
Well, I brought it up, guys, and I thought you'd find this crazy. So I immediately looked at Ferrari stock prices when the Lewis news was rumored. And before market call today, I believe Ferrari stock price was up 7 to 10%. That's before market. Okay. So whatever they paid Lewis, let's say it's crazy. It's 100 million pounds, and it's 100 million pounds a year, and he has signed a 3-year deal. That's a long time in Formula One. That's a lot of money. And maybe there's some performance bonuses in there, championship bonus, whatever it is. So whatever they pay him over the next 3 years, they made today. Wow. And they made much more than that today, because Sportico is reporting that Ferrari's value, the brand, not the race team, the brand, is up 7 billion with a B.
Wow.
7
Hold on
billion.
a second here. You're saying, so Adam, you were saying, so okay, so I think like Forbes valued the Scuderia at like $3.8 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, obviously the Scuderia is the race team of Big Ferrari. So, I mean, like, what are we talking? Like, what do you think we're talking here? Like, what do you think the value of everything is? Like,
well, so they said, Sportico is saying Ferrari stock surged 7 billion this morning after a report of Lewis Hamilton joining Scuderia Ferrari came out. The team is the most valuable by far. So Mercedes is second. So it may be actually just the team that they're saying is worth that much money, which is crazy. And this is the thing. So like, you sign a guy like this who's world famous, and it doesn't really matter what you pay him. Sign the check. You know, the salary cap that they have, or whatever the cost cap, doesn't apply to him. He's a top 3 salaried employee on the team.
Yep.
Pay him whatever. 7 billion in a day, guys. In a day.
It's wild.
It's crazy.
It's wild.
And think about how many rich guys are going, you know what? I think I'll buy a Ferrari this year because of Lewis. And it does work. That does happen. That's why they have these teams. So it's like, and it's the power of Lewis Hamilton. And I think sometimes because he hasn't won in a couple of years and Max has dominated and everybody wants to take a piece out of any champion, you forget the power of this one man and this one brand that he's created, and how unbelievable it is that this guy and his dad would show up to kart races and fish old tires, discarded tires out of the garbage, and Lewis used to race on those. And this guy was able to make Ferrari and their stock go up $7 billion today. That is an unbelievable story. And that's so that's crazy. Now, here's my question. And I want to ask you both this. If you're Charles Leclerc, are you asking yourself, who's the number 1 driver at this team? Because how does Maranello handle who gets preference? Because inevitably somebody will.
Jesse, what do you think? I'll let you go first.
If you're Leclerc, like, I think you understand if Lewis gets preference here. You know, if for because I don't think he's going to race forever. If it's the 3-4 years that it's the two of you together, and most opportunities come up, and Lewis is the 1A and you're the 1B, I think you have to understand what's happening there, and that the 8th World Championship is probably a little more important than what's going on in Leclerc's world right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think that it's good for him to learn. Like, I mean, having Lewis Hamilton on your team is, I mean, you can learn so much from him. Granted, Leclerc is probably the fastest qualifier in Formula One. I will say that. But I think when you look at like the racing itself, there's a lot that I think he needs to learn. I mean, if we go back to France 2022, I mean, Leclerc's leading. He has a massive mistake, crashes. And essentially, that was the start of the downfall for his run at trying to win a championship in 2022. I think by bringing Lewis onto the team, you're going to have to take a back seat. But at the same time, you need to understand who your teammate is and like soak every ounce of information from him that you can. But you also need to know that you're going to be the number 2 driver. This is Lewis Hamilton. He's a 7-time Formula One world champion. He owns pretty much every record in the Formula One record books. That's just the way it's going to go. And I think for Leclerc, maybe a tough pill to swallow, but I think at the end of the day, if Lewis is able to do what he can do and help that team get back to a championship winning way, I think that sets Leclerc up to be successful in the future.
Okay.
That's what I think anyways. What do we, sorry, Adam, go ahead.
No, please take it.
Well, I was going to say, what do we think happens with, because there's a number of different things going on here. First off, what do we think happens with Carlos Sainz?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel for him because he was he not booted from Renault as well in much the same way when Daniel Ricciardo took over and booted from out. Red Bull because he didn't get along with the Verstappens? Right? Like, I mean, this guy, I feel like, because he was in the Red Bull junior driver program, you know, he didn't get promoted to Toro Rosso, I think because obviously Ricciardo was there too, and he was spectacular on the Red Bull first team. But, you know, Carlos Sainz won a race last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was 3 guys that won a race. It was Max Verstappen, it was Sergio Perez, and it was Carlos Sainz. And I don't know who Max Verstappen would be more angry about winning races, Perez or Sainz, because apparently they didn't get along great on the team when they were at Toro Rosso together. But I think with Sainz, like, I mean, I don't know what Toto's relationship with him is. Mercedes have that second seat is an enormous carrot for a lot of drivers. And Sainz has got to be careful here. He's got one more year in a Ferrari. So you better perform, because if that Mercedes seat goes to somebody else, let's throw Alex Albon's name in there, who should push for a seat. And there's a close relationship between Williams and Mercedes. What are your other options? You know, are Gasly and Ocon going to be moved on from Renault? Well, they're 2 French drivers at a French team, Alpine, be pretty difficult. And then what are your options? It can be, you know, Kick Sauber, which is going to be Audi, which apparently I think Carlos Sainz Sr. has a lot of connections with Audi through Dakar, the rally thing. So that's been rumored for a while. Aston Martin's probably out, and then you're left with Haas and potentially Williams, who are resurgent, but I don't think that's ideal for Carlos. I think this guy is – do we not think this guy should be at least in the top 5 challenging for a championship on the driver's side?
I think so. I've always said it. You know, he is a very talented driver. I mean, is he at the same level of speed over one lap as Charles Leclerc is? I mean, no, but does he have good pedigree in terms of outright racing? He does. He's always strong in the race, always. You know, I would say at the beginning of 2022, that was a tough start to his season, and he didn't really start to figure out these new cars, ground effects, how much they weigh because they're so heavy. He didn't really start to figure things out till later on in the season, but then when he showed up in 2023, I mean, he started kicking some ass. So I think for Carlos, the only option, and, you know, this is from things that I've heard, is Sauber Audi. That's it. You know, both Valtteri Bottas and, you know, Zhou Guanyu, their contracts are up at the end of 2024. There will be an opening there. Audi does want him, and, you know, your first couple of years there, I mean, you're probably not going to challenge for a championship, but it is Audi. I mean, you can go there and be the number 1 driver, I think. And eventually you're gonna get to where you want to go. I just think it's going to take him a little bit longer. It's like one of those things, like, you know, 2 steps back, 1 step forward. Yeah. Where do you think he ends up, Jesse?
No, that's where I was going to go with it. It definitely looks like where there's smoke, there's fire. And for like months now, as Audi's trying to build their brand and get into F1, Carlos Sainz has kind of been the guy they want. And if you can go there and they launch as, quote, a new team, and that's your fresh start, and you get a whole team that's built around you, essentially, depending on who the second driver is, I think that's the best option when you have to leave Ferrari. You know, you go to Audi and you're the face of that brand. And I think that'd be a pretty cool position for him to be a number 1 driver, and you get this whole new thing that's just yours.
He also gets to take all the stuff he learned at Ferrari with him, right?
100%.
It's like, it's no joke being at Ferrari. I think, you know, it's the reason they brought in Alonso at Aston Martin, right? It's like they need a guy to teach them how to win.
What do you think happens when Carlos gets the radio call? Carlos, we need you to move over for style.
Oh, it's going to be spicy.
Yeah, the drivers signed for next year, Tim. I think it's only 6 of them that are confirmed for the grid. Like all the other seats are up in the air. So like, how much fighting are we going to get on the racetrack this year about guys not listening to anybody because they don't have a contract? So who cares?
It's going to be great. Same thing's going to happen with Lewis, right? I mean, for sure.
Is Lewis going to move out of the way for George?
Come on, not a chance.
Don't think so.
No, not a chance.
And what's so great about this is we didn't get a silly season, right? You get 2 silly seasons in Formula One. You get it in August. Oh, I don't know why there's balloons going off in my picture
birthday,
there. I don't know if you saw
that.
But was it the peace sign that I put?
I don't know.
Oh, there it is. It's balloons.
There you go.
Well, that's an interesting feature of our recording system. So you get 2, right? You get August and then you get the wintertime. And we were going to have, this is the first year in I don't know how many where we had a completely steady driver lineup. And already we know it won't be. I think that's cool. And
I sat down and said, I sat down. Happy birthday! I sat down and said to you, like, when was it? A couple of weeks ago, when we were chatting. I said, Adam, like, we have like 2024 is going to be freaking insane when it comes to the driver market. Like, there's going to be so much movement. So you have. Let me see if I can rattle through it all. So you have Williams, both drivers, their contracts are up. You've got Haas, both drivers, contracts are up. You have Alpine, both driver contracts are up. Same with VCARB, both driver contracts are up. And same with the Kick Sauber team, both driver contracts are up. So hopefully I think I nailed everybody there. But I mean, that's a lot. That's a ton of movement.
I forget who it was, but there was an F1 journalist today who was like, what about Valtteri Bottas back to Mercedes?
Imagine that.
It would be funny. I wanted to ask this, guys, because I think it doesn't need, you don't need insider F1 knowledge like what Tim has to think about a situation like this at a company that you work at. The Mercedes team just lost the best employee they've ever had. The best one. And Toto Wolff calls everybody in this morning. They have their chat, and then it was so obvious, right? Like Sky Sports is standing out front with a microphone and a camera. In walk the Mercedes employees. 20 minutes later, out they walk again. And I wondered how much of a disaster is this for Mercedes? Because apparently Toto Wolff only found out about this yesterday.
Yeah, it's massive. It's a monumental disaster. I mean, because you need to think about your long-term future. Obviously, that's going to go and move over to George. But now you got to think about, well, who the hell is going to take the second seat? Like, who is that driver going to be? I mean, Adam made a good point. Alex Albon, I 100%. If I'm Toto Wolff, I've got connections with James Vowles, who's the team principal at Williams Racing, where Alex Albon races. I'm going down there. I'm finding out what the situation is. How can I get him and get his ass into my car? Because I think when you look at that pyramid of teams and driver pairings, you can't have a Mercedes with a George Russell and a Frederick Vesti or Kimi Antonelli. No, you can't just put a rookie in there. That doesn't make any sense. You need to have someone who's going to be fast and experienced, because you're going up against 2 incredible McLaren drivers in Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri. You're going up against Max Verstappen and probably will be Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, I'm not saying
feels
it's going
like that,
to be, but it feels like it's heading in that direction. Very strong driver pairing there. And then you come down to, Ferrari obviously is going to be Leclerc and Hamilton. So, like, what do you do? Like, you got to get the other best driver that's out there whose contract will be up. And I don't think it's going to be Fernando Alonso. I know there's a lot of talk online about that. Some sources I've spoken with telling me Toto and Fernando haven't even had a conversation yet. There hasn't been any talks whatsoever. And the team Aston Martin really wants to keep him. So I don't think he's going to be the guy moving.
Yeah. And he's in his 40s and the team's built around him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Adam, you talk about like it's a bad day at Mercedes, but I think one guy in the Mercedes building is having a good day, and that's George Russell. Because his mentality, I don't think, has ever been that I'm the number 2 driver to Lewis Hamilton. Yeah. I'm the number 1 driver in my head, and that's how I'm going to go out there and drive. And now he's kind of, I assume he's soaked up all the knowledge he could out of Lewis, and he will continue to do that. But now George gets to stand up there and say, hey, I am the Mercedes driver, and I don't care who you bring in next to me next year. I get to be number 1 because I've been here the longest. And I think George is going to relish this opportunity because he's such a competitor, and he's going to be happy about this move and moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. I'm very happy if I'm George Russell because I know that the team's going to be centered around me, and I'm going to be a huge focal point of the team. So, yeah, I mean, let's roll. So we've got some questions in the debrief. If you guys are ready, we'll just head on over there and tackle some of those.
Let's do it.
From Parth Lad at Parlad94. What's more likely, Alonso to Mercedes or Alonso to Red Bull?
Oh.
Who wants to tackle that?
I'd say.
Oh, well, I mean, you would know better than we would.
Yeah, because Red Bull's Ricciardo's seat.
Yeah, it's not happening. Neither one of those.
By the way, the three of us are going to have to talk about the Ricciardo situation on an upcoming episode at some point because I need to understand this a little bit more. Does Yuki Tsunoda even race for VCARB anymore? As soon as Ricciardo stepped into that seat, I haven't seen him on any Instagram posts or anything. Poor guy. He's a marketable dude. I love Yuki. Yeah, I mean, I can't see Christian Horner. Christian Horner likes his guys. And you can tell when somebody goes into that Red Bull system and they haven't come up in that system and how frustrated. I mean, Helmut Marko doesn't shut up about anything. He talks to everybody all the time, especially the German press. But they really value their young driver program and the guys that they bring up through that. And it seems like you're either a Red Bull guy or you're not. And I think that's why they're so partial to Ricciardo. He's got to perform, but like Alonso in a Red Bull, I don't know. It would shock me. I think Alonso with Mercedes. I mean, I love that for 2 years running, we've had George Russell and Fernando Alonso New Year's picks. So I'm hoping it'd be great to with cigars in their mouths and they're partying with George's girlfriend. And of course, Fernando's single has to be. But I want to see. I would love to see that. I would love to see Fernando at Mercedes.
Jesse, this one's for you from at Ryan Wadby. Does the Hamilton move say more about Ferrari or Mercedes?
Oh, I think it speaks volumes about Mercedes because if Lewis Hamilton thought my best shot at a world championship is with Mercedes, there's nothing Ferrari could do about hey, our brand recognition and what we're doing over here it could lure him. If the best car was with Mercedes, he would stick around there because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about winning. So I think this says a lot about the future of what their car is going to do. And it might be a lot of 3rd, 4th place finishes in the championship for Mercedes coming up.
Ooh.
That's me. It is painful. From at MKUK_3, do you believe Mercedes' last 2 not to par seasons contributed to Hamilton leaving? Why announce your departure before even driving the W15?
Can I add to that, Tim?
Yeah.
And this is a question that I have for both of you.
Yep.
So Lewis was simulating that. He was in the simulator for the W15 a week ago, less than a week ago.
I'm sure he's probably.
Did he get in that thing and then call Fred Vasseur back and go, man, I just can't do this.
It's undrivable. I quit.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Even in the simulator, maybe. It sucks, Fred. Sign me, please.
I mean, maybe. I think there was some talk coming out of Mercedes that the simulator, what it's been showing has been very promising, and the car seems to be a big step forward from last season's car, but not like a rocket ship or anything like that. Whether or not Lewis has had a chance to even jump into sim and drive, I don't know. That's I have no idea. I haven't found that out. I know he doesn't 100% like doing the simulator because it's not actual real world stuff. Mm-hmm. He has been doing the simulator a lot more over the past few seasons, but again, that's because they've been struggling so much. I couldn't give you an answer on that one, whether or not he's been in the car or not in the sim. From at Walking Gauge 31, do you think this decision was based on the direction Mercedes was taking with the W15? And yeah, I mean, I have a feeling it's not only W15 but W16 as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think it's up to snuff. But I mean, who knows, right, guys? I mean, like, we could get to the track like in Bahrain in a couple of weeks' time, and I mean, they may just be as competitive as Red Bull, right? Like we don't know. Nobody knows.
Wouldn't it be funny what if they won? Like what a story, right?
It'd be a great way to go out. You go out on top.
Oh my God.
That'd be a great story.
Yeah, it would. But like, again, right? Let's think about it though. That makes a point where it's like, what happens if you win and then you're not back the next year and Ferrari takes like a U-turn?
I guess that's the risk you take, you try and do as much research as you can and you take your chances,
Oh, baby.
Yeah. I think he's trying to win. I assume that'd be great if Lewis won this year. That's his goal.
Yeah, no, and we need it. Like, I want to see, Verstappen versus Hamilton again.
Oh, yeah.
I need that in my life.
We need a rematch.
To an extent.
We need Latifi back in his seat. We need a redo of Abu Dhabi. Let's go.
No, we don't need that. We don't need a redo of Abu Dhabi. We don't need that. But I think we definitely need to see Hamilton and Verstappen go at it. Like, I'd love to see that. And I also think this season's going to be pretty good. We don't have much time left, guys, but I want to get your take on what's coming up this season, because I don't know when we're going to get to do this again. So 2024, Jesse, give me your predictions.
I think we just nailed it. Lewis wins. He goes out on top. That's his last season at Mercedes. He's a champion, picks up the 8th world title, moves to Ferrari, and keeps winning.
Oh, I like that. Hard to compete with that. Because I'm a homer, Lando Norris gets his first race win in the first 5 races of the season. There's my
first 5 races.
Yeah, he's going to come out. He's going to be on fire because he was finishing like 2nd and 3rd and stuff. So like, let's say Max hits a corner the wrong way, and then he spun out. That's crazy. And then Lando takes over and he wins. Because I remember watching that Russia race where he didn't put the slicks on. And he had the race, and he was going to win, and then so I think he needs a little bit of luck when he's in 2nd place. I feel like it's difficult for Red Bull not to win again this year, but I am going to say that it will be a lot closer. And going into this year, I had a lot more faith in Mercedes than I do Ferrari, but man, maybe I need to rethink that to be 2nd place, right?
I mean, that's what like some of these questions that we've got, I mean, it makes you think, right? I mean, it's like,
yeah. I
mean, if Lewis is seeing something that, nobody else is, and we get to the track and they're not as competitive as they want to be, I mean, he's done a great move here. But if they get to the track and they're very competitive, then, I don't know. And Ferrari isn't, that's definitely a massive question mark on leaving the team.
If I gave you guys the choice of Max winning the world title or any other driver, which bet would you take? You get the entire rest of the grid, or you get Max on who wins the world title this season?
He's on fire right now, though. I mean, it's really hard to bet against the guy. Like, even though, like, Red Bull will be strong, I don't think they're going to be as strong this season as they were last season, because that car is absolutely incredible and you really can't perfect much more on it. It's pretty amazing. But that being said, if there was going to be a driver who I could see challenging Max, beating Max, it's Lewis Hamilton. But the car, again, has to be underneath him. And if it's not going to be Lewis, then Charles Leclerc.
Ooh, wow. That'd be fun. That'd be historic. Imagine Charles Leclerc wins with Ferrari, and then Lewis comes in and goes, I'm the number 1 driver now.
That'd be pretty crazy.
It would be nuts. Yeah. He at least will make more money.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks very much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. If you want more from Jesse Blake or Adam Wylde, you can get Jesse at Jesse Blake on social media. Same with Adam Wylde at Adam Wylde. Guys, thanks again for doing this. Really appreciate it. If you want to watch or listen to more Nailing the Apex, head on over to our YouTube channel. Give us a like, subscribe, write a review. Let us know what you think. And we will be back next Monday with a very special guest. I wonder if I can announce it now.
Can you say it?
No, I don't know if I can say it now.
I don't even know the answer to
we
this.
already, we did the episode. We did the episode already. Like, it's already been recorded. It's in the can. We got to edit it, and then we got to blow it up. I'm going to wait.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm gonna wait.
Come on.
All right.
I'm gonna wait. It's
All
good.
right,
It's
Tim.
good. It's good. You guys
Fine.
are gonna like it. Guys, thanks again for doing this. Really appreciate it. I'm Tim Hauraney. If you want more from me, you can get me at Tim Hauraney. We'll talk to you all next week.